Want to welcome everyone to our board meeting. We're going to call this meeting to order. We do have a quorum. And we're under opening business, and first of all, I want to make sure that you're aware that Board Member Cannon asked to be excused. She won't be with us today and tomorrow. We'll start off with the Pledge of Allegiance, and we asked Board Member Hanson, will you please lead that?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Next, we'll have our board member message from Board Member Lisa Cummins. There we go.
Thank you, Chair Huntsman. In the 1958 movie, Teacher's Pet, starring Doris Day and Clark Gable, Gable stars as a news reporter who believes that proper education is a waste of time and that hard knocks learning is the way to go, while Day's character was a reporter who became a teacher to teach about journalism. They clashed at the beginning about the proper ways to be a great reporter, but each came at it from different experiences. James Cannon, Gable's character, said, "How could you give up real newspaper job for teaching?" Erica Stone said, "Well, that's a very good question, Mr. Gallagher. Maybe for the same reason that occasionally a musician wants to be a conductor. He wants to hear 100 people play music the way he hears it." Did that mean that Gannon did not want his readers to see things the way he saw them? No, he just went at it a different way. Gannon's perspective was no less valuable than Stone's. Both had merit. Both had ideas that could be brought to the table with equal consideration. Both individuals had worked really hard to be where they were, both professionally and personally. No one was greater than another. We do not do that enough here in Utah's education environment. As leaders of education, our own interests can cloud over the human cost of advancement. And that has at times caused a rippling effect of distrust among those of whom we lead or work with. Public speaker and author Simon Sinek stated the following from his book, Leaders Eat Last. "We don't trust people to obey rules. We trust that they know when to break them. The rules are there for normal operations. The rules are there to avoid danger and to help ensure things go smoothly. And though there are guidelines for how to deal with emergencies, at the end of the day, we trust the expertise of a few special people to know when to break the rules. The responsibility of a leader is to provide cover from above for their people who are working below. When the people feel that they have control to do what's right, even if something sometimes means breaking the rules, then they will more likely do the right thing. Courage comes from above. Our confidence to do what is right is determined by how trusted we feel by our leaders and our peers. If good people are asked to work in a bad culture, one in which leaders do not relinquish control, then the odds of something bad happening goes up. People will be more concerned about the following rules out of fear of getting into trouble or losing their jobs than doing what needs to be done. And when that happens, souls will be lost." End quote. In America, in education, we have an abundance of resources and programs, nearly everything we want. And yet we are not succeeding, in my opinion. Mr. Sinek advises, quote, that abundance can be destructive, not because it is bad per se, but it abstracts the value of things. The more we have, the less we seem to value what we've got. And if the obstruction of stuff makes us value it less, imagine what it does to our relationships. We no longer see each other as people. We are now customers, shareholders, employees, avatars, online profiles, screen names, email addresses, and expenses to be tracked. The human being has gone virtual. Are we dehumanizing each other, our teachers, our students? Mr. Cynic continues to teach that our culture determines if we will do the right thing, that if we do the right thing instead of doing what is right for me. What is our culture like today in our boardroom? The Utah State Board of Education has its own history, its own traditions, languages, and acronyms. We identify as our own culture. We associate because of our positions as elected officials voted for by people who believed in our viewpoints. Not one of us is less than another. Each of us is here because we have worked hard and have stood by our beliefs, our values, our precepts of education, as well as our definitions of the proper role of government. I frequently share ideas and opinions that are frowned upon and loudly opposed by many. I believe in the idea that those closest to the information, as Cynic has stated, should have and maintain the authority to do something with that information. Consequently, the founders thought the same. I make efforts to ensure my votes are based on fundamental principles. I believe in limited government. I believe in the role of family and the responsibility that goes along with that. My definition of local control is between the teacher and the parents. I do not believe in a top-down approach in solving all problems. Name one government program that has succeeded with a small budget and without scandal. There isn't one. That is not what government is for. That is not what a leader is for. And it takes away ownership, accountability, and responsibility of those who is closest to the information. Do I get it wrong sometimes? Yes. But in getting it wrong, it presents an opportunity to allow others to join me in teaching me and those listening, as well as providing ownership to those who help to come up with suggestions and solutions. We become a team, and that allows others to feel accomplishment for themselves. That feeling allows them to have courage to go forward on other things by themselves. What it does not mean is that I am wrong for the job as an elected official. It means I am bringing different approaches, different insights, different experiences to the table. I also sometimes get it right, but it has never been for my benefit. It has been for those who elected me to allow them more choices for their children, their students, and the teachers for their classrooms. Integrity is important. Integrity, the root word, or where it comes from, the Latin origin, talks about soundness, wholeness, completeness, figuratively purity, correctness, blamelessness. From the 1828 dictionary, the entire unimpaired state of anything, particularly of the mind, moral soundness or purity, incorruptness, uprightness, honesty, integrity, comprehends the whole moral character, but has a spaitic reference to uprightness in mutual dealings, transfers of property, and agency for others. I hope that we respect each other. I hope that we can gain an integral relationship with each other, which I believe has been lost, especially when outside sources come to us and put each other against us. We must and can do better in how we treat each other and by passing better policies for Utah's education. The sky's the limit if we open up our culture of control and oversight by nitpicking at each other and not providing more of something, but by providing better quality of what we already have. Thank you.
Okay. And that concludes our board member message. Next, we'll move to our employee recognition and turn the time over to Superintendent.
Actually, I think that's new employees and recognition. So it's,
Who's going to, well, your name's on this, but.
it's
whoever's going to handle this, we'll have them, you just
Thank
state
you.
who you are
Thank you.
on the mic.
Thank you. Michelle Watts with
There's
Human
two parts of
Resources.
this.
The employees will come on in and they will introduce themselves and where they're from, and they will stay after. So if you guys want to come up to the podium and introduce yourselves.
Good morning. I'm Karen Heaton. I am the new Human Resource Analyst here at Education. I came from the Department of Natural Resources Human Resource Office.
Good morning. My name is Kira Hedden. I came from Academy Mortgage. Right now I am currently in teaching and learning. I am an office specialist.
Hi, my name is Debbie Dawn. I came from the State Capitol Division of Fleet Management. I am now here at the Board of Education as a construction purchasing liaison for building and purchasing.
Good morning. My name is Gary Sapp. I'm a contractor in the IT department. Before here, I've worked for the Department of Workforce Services and the Department of Health. I'm working on revising the base system. Okay.
Hi, my name is Bhagavati Pillai. I worked previously in Department of Arkansas Human Services, and my department is budgeting and accounting and the base software, and the title is Popular Developer.
Okay. Thank you for joining USBE.
In addition to recognizing new employees, and we expertly acquire great employees, we have also had a tradition of having an Employee of the Month, and you have seen their picture out on the front desk. Well, now the front desk is over here. So you've seen their picture on the front desk and on the marquee, and they get a parking space and 8 hours of admin leave time that we sometimes have to coax them to take because they're so busy. And we have decided that it might be nice to honor them in front of the board as well. So we're starting that tradition today by honoring our Employee of the Month, Adam Little. Adam, would you come up? So I'd like to introduce you to Adam. Adam he wears many hats in our agency, but he's assigned to be an IT analyst for our student support section. And Adam is somebody who I don't know if you get voluntold or you actually volunteer, but probably a little bit of both. But he's always willing to serve on committees. He serves on our Employee Action Committee. And he is one who has many skills. And somebody found out that he has these great skills in Excel programs. But not only that, he is excellent at teaching others how to engage by improving their Excel skills. So he's been differentiating training for our employees and has really been so helpful. And everybody is so excited when they walk away from training. And he also has digitized some of that so people can access it online and through video. And so we just really are so excited to honor Adam Little as your first honoree publicly as Employee of the Month. Congratulations, Adam.
Thank you, Superintendent, and thank you, new employees and our Employee of the Month. It's good to know. There's also a nice parking spot really close that they... Okay. We'll have the acknowledgement of the art, and this will be presented by Jolie Honey.
Great.
Right? Did I get it?
Yes, that is correct. It is Honey. That was the part, right? Not the Jolie part, but yes, Jolie Honey. And I am honored to be here. Thank you for having me today. I'm here in place of Kathy Jensen. I'm the STEM coordinator and would love to have you guys look over to this wall where we are seeing artwork from Salt Lake City School District and East High School. This is their advanced studio course, and they are self-portraits that are a three-dimensional kind of self-portrait situation. And one of the things that I love about this is there's a focus on like the positives and negatives and how pulling those two things together really kind of make the portraits pop. And then also on this wall over here, we have a couple of personal items that we have from some of the artists. The one that you see that is the second one where the girl is kind of leaning back, that is a girl who throughout the year, last year, had a situation where she was feeling pretty introverted, withdrawn, and really said that through art she's really created a lot of self-expression, and that is her favorite class and is super important, and we know how important that is for all of us. And she just said that she's really come out of her shell, not just with her expression in art, but also to be able to advocate and be herself. And then the other piece of artwork that I'd like to draw your attention to is the portrait of the girl with the gold. And this is a situation where the student had a mother who was going through cancer treatments. And toward the end of the school year, the student created this piece to express how she was coping. And it's probably hard to read the quote from here, so I will share with you that one of the things that this says is that in Japan, broken objects are often repaired with gold. The flaw is seen as a unique piece of the object's history, which adds to its beauty. So consider this when you feel broken. And so... great stuff. So we appreciate you having us, and that is our art recognition conversation.
Thank you very much. It's good.
Thank you for not asking me art questions.
I almost did. Glad I didn't. Okay. Next up, we have our education highlight. It's K through 3 reading. We'd like to invite Jennifer Thronson up and everyone else, if you can do introductions. I think you've got kind of a posse or a group that's...
I do. I have a posse this morning, and I'm a little ill, so just deal with the frog voice. I'm going to invite Superintendent Sweat from Wasatch School District, as well as Superintendent Brotherson from Duchesne School District with Jason Young, their elementary curriculum director. If they will come up, please, and we'll pull up a few more chairs. One moment.
And we can turn that other mic on too, if we need to.
And I'm gonna, I guess I'll stand for a moment. This is, yeah, if we don't mind, I'm not a podium girl. It's just a little awkward. It just seems so fancy, and it's not me. All right, good morning. I am, push on stairs, okay. I'm Jennifer Thronson, the Pre-K-12 Literacy and Library Media Coordinator, and I am grouped here with some great LEAs that are really doing some good work in literacy that we wanted to highlight as part of our improvement in literacy as a state. They are definitely contributors to that. Superintendent Sweat also has some more friends that I would like to just introduce if they'll stand up. Lana Wright is their new district literacy specialist. They've added a role for K through 12. Excellent, thank you, Lana. Then we've got Jim Judd, who is their director of secondary, and Eric Campbell, who is their director of elementary. When it comes to question time for this session today, they may be called on by Superintendent Sweat to add more to the conversation. Just so I wanted to introduce them to you now in case that occurs. In terms of what you have in front of you, you have just a quick little one-pager of some data to give you a highlight of where we are. So this year was the first year since I've been here, which this is going on my 5th year at the state, that we saw some positive trends in our state data. So for K-3 literacy, we've been kind of downward trending for the last few years, and we had an upward trend, or at least static. So looking at the data, last year we were at 68%. Honestly, the year before that we were at 68%. The year before that was like 66%. So it went up a little bit in this trend, but this year is kind of our most sizable gain at 4%, moving up to 72. And when we look at this data, it's really talking about the percentage of students who are making typical or better progress in their literacy outcomes, as measured by DIBELS. So when we're looking at this, the expected goal is 60% because it's kind of built on a percentile system, but we are actually exceeding that. National average is close to 62%, so we have some good above the national average as well. But I highlighted the 2 LEAs that we have here today with Wasatch and Duchesne. Looking at their data, they made some sizable gains. To have the types of gains that you see here with 11% in Duchesne and another 11% in Wasatch County is really a sizable difference between one year to the next. So really wanted to highlight some of the work they've been engaging in and continue to engage in. They started on this pathway, especially with Wasatch last year. They were looking at those outcomes and kind of saying, what can we do differently? Really did some internal conversations and work, and I anticipate that their data will continue to grow. And Duchesne's been doing some similar work, really looking at how can we support our teachers with materials and instruction and standard setting around what are kind of our go-tos. And so they're going to kind of describe some of their strategies that they've been working on that I think, as you listen, might be some strategies as you move forward with the early foundations goal at the board level, might be some things to consider about what strategies might be effective in that space. So we're going to start with Superintendent Sweat, if we can get the slides to work this morning. So far, so good.
Well, thank you, Jennifer, for that introduction. I really appreciate being here this morning. It's always nice to be able to highlight your own school district and recognize your people. I want to thank a couple of folks before I start so that I don't forget at the end. I'd like to start by thanking Superintendent Dixon. She is certainly a leader among leaders in the state of Utah, and I really appreciate her collaborative approach. She's so willing to listen to the district superintendents. She's part of our group, and I really appreciate the culture that she is instilling here at USBE. I also want to thank Jennifer. Jennifer certainly has played a hand in our role, has played a role in the improvement at Wasatch County School District. She's helped us identify some things. She's helped us bring in the expert knowledge that we need, and she's an ongoing partner with us. It's not one and done. It's a partnership, and we appreciate her collaborative approach and the things that she's done to help us. It's also nice to be here today with Duchesne. They're our neighbors. Dave Brotherson and I kind of came up through our respective systems together. We used to be high school principals at the same time. He's been a great leader, a great friend, and a mentor to me, and has made some great improvements in Duchesne County. And I appreciate being here with him, and also with Jason, another fine educator from Duchesne. So with that, I'll get started. I know that we're about 5 minutes here, so I'll try and get through this as quickly as possible. I am kind of an old country boy. It takes me about 5 minutes just to say hello. So Chairman Huntsman and I tried to say hello to him, and I think at 7 minutes, I finally let him go sit down. So I'll try my best here. So in Wasatch County School District, I think one of the first things that we realized we had to do as we dug into our data and as we have made specific goals to improve our student achievement is we identified literacy. And as I said, with the help of some people that showed us how and where, we understood that literacy is the key to improving in all other areas of education. There's an old leadership philosophy out there that if you want to improve, you want to pick one or two things and do those one or two things well. And the single most area of improvement that would have the most collateral effect, positive collateral effect, on all of our other goals would be literacy. And I think that's an understood. It's just something that we had to recognize and act on. So we started by making this a priority. We had some Jim Collins framing the problem, confronting the brutal facts meetings almost 1 year ago, maybe 13, 14 months ago in Wasatch County School District, and we came out of those meetings with literacy being priority one. And that wasn't just early literacy, which is very important and something that we're going to talk about, but it was K-12. We had to assess, we had to identify, we had to go to work from top to bottom in our school district to make this work. After making this our priority, we moved into a phase of gathering expert knowledge. And as we dug into this a little deeper, I will say I'm more than happy to share what I found, and that is teachers showing up at school districts right out of preparatory programs are not necessarily literacy experts. They have a certain amount of training, but they need more. And we decided we lacked a certain expertise in our system as it related to literacy education. And so we did a lot of things together, all of the expert knowledge that we felt we needed. We visited high-performing districts. We got everybody together and we threw it all out on the table. Who knew what? Where were we at? Let's share what we know. Let's have a big district PLC. You can do that in a district our size. And then we partnered with outside experts, with Jennifer being one, with others not only from the state of Utah, but from around the country, where we brought the best of the best to our district to share with us their knowledge and help us craft a plan of improvement. So the next phase would be best practice. I think all districts are involved in this search for best practice. We have to continually be in a mode of finding those things that are effective and that work the best, just like any other profession. And as we dug into our practices, we focused on a few things. We've been a PLC district for a long time, like most districts are now. We needed to be high functioning. We needed to have our PLCs functioning at the highest levels. And a high functioning PLC to me means that that hour of collaboration every week is specifically spent on sharing data, identifying those practices that are working, and then sharing those practices not only within the PLC group, but across the district. We started a reading endorsement class. We have a principal that's an expert in this area, and of a couple of hundred elementary teachers in Wasatch County School District, we were blown away when over half of them signed up to spend 2 evenings a week working on a literacy endorsement, and that's an ongoing program in our district right now. We dedicated some of the coaching help that we have in our elementary schools. We dedicated one person as a literacy coach in each one of our schools, and then we dug into those evidence-based practices and made sure that we were weaving those into our instructional work as we function moving forward. We can't leave secondary behind. That's a mistake we've made in education for a long time, traditionally leaving the literacy work up to elementary schools. That can no longer be the case. So we have many things going on. Jim Judd, our secondary ed guy, is here today and would be happy to answer any questions about our secondary literacy team and the awesome work that's going on in our secondary schools as well as our elementary schools. So moving forward, a lot of the work that we've done, some of it is present on this slide. Most of it on this slide is work that we continue to implement. So we're concerned about having such a large jump in 1 year's time. It's like winning a big game. Sometimes there's a little bit of a lull, and we sit back and say, well, we've arrived, and we're working very hard not to do that. So we have a long list of improvements that we're continuing to make in the 2018-19 school year. One is Upstart. We know that Upstart, as provided by USBE, is a program that works, and that's the software that we try and get into the homes of our 3- and 4-year-olds so that they have some instruction on literacy before they ever get to school. And there's lots of homes that need this. There's lots of homes that mom and dad either don't or they can't read to their students and give them what they need. So we've expanded. We've gone door to door, expanding our Upstart footprint in Wasatch County School District. Preschool, we applied for a grant through Jennifer and her people, and we were very happy to get that grant through USBE, and we have greatly expanded our preschool. We're to the point where we can almost accommodate every student that wants to be in preschool and have a preschool experience. And we again have targeted those students that need the help the most, that come from underprivileged homes, that need that help and the experience of preschool. Our school board has been 100% leading this charge and supporting it from a policy-making standpoint with the preschool expansion and also with all-day kindergarten. We've offered all-day kindergarten as an option. We had to go to Truth and Taxation to fund it. And while there was some concern, we left it as an option. And I was just speaking with Eric, our elementary education director, and he believes only 7 students opted out of all-day kindergarten. Gives us more time to help them get started on the right path with their literacy experience as a kindergartner. We talked about adding a district literacy specialist. In our district, we have a elementary specialist. We have not had a dedicated literacy specialist. Lana Wright's here with us today, and if you have any questions for her, she'd be glad to answer some questions. But we're excited to have her on board, and she's fast becoming very effective in that position. That's new for this year. And then, very important, I think this may be the most important piece of the whole initiative, if there is one. I think it takes all of the above, and we talk about the fact that we didn't choose A, C, and F. We chose all of the above in moving forward with our initiative, and a big part of that is making sure that our tiered instruction is solid. Our Tier 1 instruction is solid. We now have when we talk about dedicated Tier 2 and 3 literacy instruction, we have a rule that you cannot miss Tier 1 instruction. No student can ever be pulled out of Tier 1 instruction. Every student has to be exposed to that core curriculum and that core instruction to get started. And then we'll go into the Tier 2 and the Tier 3 stuff as we need to, and it's very structured and specific, but it does not happen during Tier 1. Scaffolding grade level content. What this means to us is, we don't hold people back. We don't pull people out. We actually scaffold up and give them the help that they need to not only gain this year's growth, but also the growth in which they might be behind. But it's all done with including that Tier 1 initial instruction and making sure that we don't bypass that. Community involvement. We've had a lot of fun with the community. Fair Days is still a big deal in Wasatch County, and we have a nice Fair Days parade, and we had a float this year, and I had all of our board members on it and a whole bunch of kids, and they were all reading a book. And we started with, we ran some statements and articles in our paper, and we've really set the goal to increase literacy not only in our school district but in our community. We have plans, only in the planning stage, of a family education center someday in Wasatch County, and a big part of that will be allowing families to come to our center in the evening and learn to read and to learn reading strategies for the adults and for the children. So we've had a lot of fun with hashtag Wasatch Reads, and we've got some things we'll pass out to you that you may be interested in looking over, at a later date or on your own time. But we've had a lot of fun with this community campaign and making sure that we're getting buy-in across the board. So that's basically our presentation. We have a picture. We asked all of the high school teams in the homecoming parade, and also many of them was in our county Fair Days parade and as well as Swiss Days parade. So those are the 3 major parades in Wasatch County, if anybody was keeping track or wondering. And we asked all of our groups to have a book and have a banner on their float that talked about Wasatch Reads and what we're doing. Well, this is our drill team, and aren't they cute? And this is them before they got on their float to go down Main Street, and they've all got their books, and they were all reading. Our football team, on their float, every one of them, they had a book and they were reading. We have a program now where our high school kids, the football coach loves to send me a text of his players in the elementary schools reading to elementary children. It's one of the things that we're doing. So this reading initiative has permeated all areas of our district and continues to permeate many areas of our community, and we're just getting started. So thank you. I appreciate, again, being here and sharing these things with you, and we'll I think I'll give the time back to Jennifer.
Okay, we do have some questions from board members, so Jennifer, when you're ready, just,
I would prefer,
well, let me turn this back on.
if possible,
Okay.
Board Chair, if we could have Duchesne go, just because I think you'll see some commonalities, and those questions might get not answered, but supported and kind of further your thinking with kind of Duchesne's conversation.
Let's
if
finish
that
the
would be okay.
presentation.
Yes,
Just
absolutely.
to let you know.
All right, so Superintendent and Jason, if you'll kind of describe your strategies.
We're very grateful as well to be here and would like to echo Superintendent Sweat's comments about Superintendent Dixon and our relationship with Wasatch, Superintendent Sweat as well. But I'd like to add just a little bit to Jennifer's resume. As Jennifer comes to our state and to this position, she had no preconceived notions. We're not typically one that sits at this table, but as we represent a different demographic in Duchesne and have a different group of people that we represent. There was no preconception there, and as she comes to council or to consult with us, she doesn't take any previous accomplishments or non-accomplishments into account. And with her help and with our efforts and our focus as a school board and district leadership, we're able to make significant progress. I'm going to turn the time over to Jason. He's our curriculum director and heads this up with our teachers and through our PLC groups, and I'll let him explain our process.
Thank you. Well, I appreciate that. It's an honor to represent our teachers and our families and our students in our county. We've done some great things, and I'm proud of what's happening there. Appreciate Superintendent Sweat's comments. He began and concluded with the prioritization of literacy, and I think that's a very common theme for us in our district as well. There are a lot of things that go on, from transportation to food services and all the different aspects that go into educating a child, and what would top the list if we had to choose one thing, it would probably be first grade reading. Is more important than anything else, and second to it is kindergarten and second grade reading, and then everything else would fall after that. Literacy is at that age, early age especially, is so vital to everything we do, and with that focus and with that priority, I think comes a lot of support and resource and something that matters a great deal to us. As we held some conversations of what we might say to you today from what we were doing, I wanted to find that one thing that we could just tell you, the silver bullet that would just allow everything to, all reading would just happen in our state. And we could not find it. And it reminded me of a little saying I heard once, that there is no such thing as a silver bullet, only silver buckshot. And so that really applied to this situation. There are many different aspects, many BBs in our buckshot that would contribute, and so we've kind of listed, and it's very interesting that the Wasatch's journey is the same as what we've done in Duchesne. Very common right down the line from what Superintendent Sweat has brought up. We feel like our PLC process is key to this, where teachers can learn from each other. We feel like it's allowed us, we very much value the data that we receive, whether that's from state assessments like Dibbles, or whether that's from our own assessment we do in our district. But our teachers have become they crave the data that they receive because it informs their instruction. I think that really has had a big impact on why we're such a low opt-out district as well. We began low and we went down in our opt-out rate ever since. And I think that's because of the culture of valuing the data that we receive from these things. It informs our instruction. It makes a difference to where the teacher goes with that lesson. And so that's an important aspect to us. Also, several years ago, we took a visit, the growth mindset that has been mentioned, we took a visit to Cache School District, and why are they doing so well? And one of the big takeaways from there was the consistency in their program. They had been consistent for years. They have every intention to continue to be consistent in their approach to their literacy. All of their teachers, all their specialists, all of their aides and helpers were very familiar with their system. And they kept going, and that consistency allowed them to be successful. And we left from there determined to do the same. And so we adopted several measures. We came together as a district PLC in grade levels. We developed a curriculum guide for all of our teachers to be able to guide them through. It included, we went through our state standards, which I very much applaud the work of those who went into putting those together. Our standards are tremendous and have helped us a great deal. We were able to collaborate with other states. Resources are so much more plentiful. It's been a great help to us to have the standards we have, and we've used that to establish priority standards, which ones would have the most leverage to us, also and to our students. We've developed pacing guides and all kinds of things that help our teachers to stay together and work together as a PLC. And so that's been very, very effective for us. We adopted the Wonders reading program for our elementaries to have a consistent year-to-year-to-year approach, and we committed to that fully. We consider that the spine of our literacy instruction, allowing teachers then the freedom to be able to add appendages to the spine as they see fit, not to abandon it, but to use other resources and pull them in to fit specific needs they see with their class. So it allows teachers some freedom to go and innovate, but also the structure and the spine to keep us together and keep the consistency year to year. So I think that's been very, very helpful for us. I've mentioned our Dibbles assessment. It's nice to have had that for a while, to see that on the horizon as going to stay for a while, where we're not trying to hit a moving target. And the target is steady, and we're able to climb because it's consistent and steady, and we appreciate that. We have invested a lot in our coaching. We have induction coaches, so our new teachers particularly, we try to help them with whatever they need. Finding an apartment if they need it, whatever they need help with, we try to help them with, but especially their instruction and literacy. And that's been something that we've seen the writing on the wall as far as difficult to hire new teachers. And so we knew we needed a systematic approach to this so a new teacher can be plugged in and it could succeed. Maybe a teacher who doesn't have a lot of background, it's a mom returning back to the work because the family needs the income. And we've allowed them to come right in and be, with our curriculum guide and our systemic approach, it's been helpful for those people to come in and be successful right off the bat. And our coaching is vital to that as well. Principal, the mentor, as well as the district coaches. So a lot of support that goes into helping them. And then, as I've mentioned, then allowing the simultaneously tight from the district expectation as well as loose to allow the teachers to still innovate on the level of classroom lesson planning, on designing the activities that are going to take place. They're assessing in their classroom. They're able to still feel that freedom to do those things and add some enjoyment to their job. That's why they got into the job profession, is to have that freedom. So the simultaneous balanced approach of loose and tight, I think, has been helpful for us. So hopefully a few of those things are beneficial to you, and we feel like it's helping our district, and we continue down the path uninterrupted is our anticipation. So thank you.
Thank you, Jennifer. Were you ready for some? Oh, let me turn this back on.
All right, it's going now. We're ready to answer any questions that their commentary might have kind of started for you and see what we can do to kind of further this conversation in the highlight that it is.
Okay, we'll start off with Board Member Lisa Cummins.
I have lots of questions. First, Tiffany, other than Duchesne and Wasatch, are other districts seeing similar growths?
So this year in particular, we saw growth
I'm
across.
sorry, Jen.
No worries, I'm sick. The brain function. But Jennifer, yeah. So we've seen some good outcomes in terms of the state changing 4%. So there are other LEAs having significant gains. The two that are significant as well, that are 17, 18% gains, were Paiute and Emory. I would like to highlight them. They just have a small N size in terms of Paiute. I was down there last week, and I think it's 12 kids in third grade. So in terms of, is it a systems approach? Is it a really great teacher? It's kind of hard to be able to say, are those strategies the same? But having spoken with them, I think they're looking at this from a systems place too. Like, they've adopted a core program, they're looking at their interventions. As I listened to Duchesne and Wasatch about what strategies are working, these things, if any of you were there in July on the Hill when we had some LEAs speak to what their strategies were, very similar conversations. The things that are working, we're finding some commonalities across.
So, Chair, if I may follow
Yeah,
up
follow
with
up.
him. So we talked about last year, do you remember our conversation? We had talked about phonics. Do we know if phonics have been implemented further across the state to increase this rise as well?
We're seeing some better gains. I anticipate, we did the summer training for the Literacy Institute this summer with 101 of the 122 LEAs that attended. And we really, the goals that the LEAs have set are in that space between phonemic awareness and phonics.
Okay.
I anticipate this won't be a one-year bump for us. There's just too much intentionality coming from our charters and districts about the work, especially those early foundational skills. And the importance of PA and phonics has really come out through the data as they dived into their own local data and said, hey, we have a deficit in this area. We saw a big bump in curriculum purchases to some level because they weren't teaching some of these skills. Mm-hmm. And some of it, they've had to do more robust instructional plans, so they have materials, but some of the core programs aren't intense enough for our students, and so they're having to intensify on their own, but they started to see those gaps. And so I anticipate PA and phonics, everyone in the state has some kind of support system at this point. When I came on 4 years ago, that wasn't the case. Okay. So we are seeing that. I think it's just being intentional about that instruction. Okay. Our teachers, when we did our state survey this past spring, PA and phonics are the two areas of literacy they feel the least confident in. So we need to continue our work in terms of, it's great to have tools, but also the instruction that goes with those tools.
Right. Okay, I have one.
Okay, well, I'm going to, if you can save it, there's 6 board members that have questions, and so board members, so we can get around this a little bit to allow you to have one question, one follow-up, and so board member Cummins, I can come back to you if your question is an and.
It's directed to the districts, but.
Okay. So board member Hanson and then Vice Chair Ellis, you're on deck.
So can I say hooray? That's awesome. I think it's fabulous. So thank you so much for coming. Question for about dyslexia, because we've had the Wasatch Reading Summit. I know our special ed department has been working a lot. There have been hundreds of teachers who went to that training this month on dyslexia. So are you working with those students and those teachers to help them understand what they can do to help students with dyslexia?
So now's where I invite my experts to come up to the table. Do you three want to come up for this question and answer period? If I can get Eric, my secondary ed director, and Jim Judd's our secondary, actually Eric's elementary, and Lana Bingham. So Eric, do you want to tackle that question? Maybe you can sit right there.
I could just stand and do it this way.
There's a chair behind you.
I appreciate that question, that we often are working with our special ed staff and also those teachers to really target those students and make sure that not just our teachers and our specialists, but they're working together in conjunction and providing those students with exactly what they need as far as the interventions and that intensive time that those students need to move forward. We've spent a lot of our time and energy in training our specialists across our elementary schools, and Wilson is one of the programs that we've actually spent a lot of time with to make sure those teachers are well prepared to work with those students.
Thank you.
Did you have a follow-up? Okay.
No, that was it.
all
I
right.
just thank you for working with those students.
Okay, thank you. Vice Chair Ellis, and then Board Member Wright, you're on deck.
Thank you. I just wanted to give a shout out to both of these districts. I represent both of them, and I just want to thank you for coming today. I saw Wasatch County. I didn't realize that Duchesne was also part of the highlight, so we appreciate your work and applaud you for your efforts. Reading is super important, and we all know that it is the foundational skill to a great education. So thank you for coming today. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Okay. Board Member Wright, then Board Member Gravitt, you're on deck.
I think what you're doing is so amazingly important. Thank you. You're really trying, and I love how you're really looking at things. And so that's why I'm so curious to ask you this question. My children attend American Fork High School, and the LDS Seminary recently banned electronic devices for scriptures and other reading because they just felt it was too impossible to learn with all the other distractions on it. I can only imagine first, second, third graders who frequently know how to use iPads better than we do. Just they've been raised that way. When a child is trying to learn how to read, I don't care anywhere from kindergarten through 12th grade, can they learn how to read on an electronic device, or do we need to use paper? I'm truly curious because I think this is going to be a huge issue going forward.
Whatever you thoughts you have. I can take that a little bit. We again, a balanced approach to that as well with what we try to do. We know that there are so many tools online that can help our students in so many ways. We have the state's grant with the early reading software that we implement quite a bit in our school district, and that's a great support to us as we talked about the spine, that one of those appendages is absolutely this early reading software that our students use, and so it's a great benefit to them. Superintendent Sweat mentioned Upstart. We use that as well, which is a pre-K online help for the reading. So I definitely think that the online and electronic means can be of great benefit, but we hate to put all of our resources, all of our hopes on just one. We definitely think the balanced approach is the best way to do it, so we like to look at both. We don't have quite the distractions of texting and Instagram in our kindergarten classes as maybe they would in seminary, so not an issue there, but it's definitely a help.
Okay. Any other comments to Board Member Wright?
I'd give a brief comment, and then I think maybe some of our folks have some additional thoughts, but we typically in Wasatch have not been in this vein of just banning electronic devices. I think that we have to teach our students how to use them properly. And I think we have to, and it is an uphill battle in some instances, and it's difficult. But, you know, I'm a student myself right now. I attend USU in the summer, and I'm working on one more degree. My kids wonder if I'm ever going to quit going to school. But most of my reading at the university is electronic. It's on a computer. It's on my phone. It's on a tablet. Wasatch is a one-to-one district, and we deliver a lot of our educational activities through an electronic device. That doesn't mean that our kids don't read paper books and pack around novels, and because we do both. I think balanced approach is right, but I think it's with a lot of other things where you have to spend the appropriate amount of time teaching and training your students to use it in a positive way.
I'll just add to that. With our curriculum adoption this year, what's nice is we have the choice to have our curriculum handed to our students through ebook or through paper. And so I think having that option is great. Also, with the ebook, we can track students' reading progress at a moment's notice. There are features that students can read into the computer, and they can get an immediate feedback, and I think that's really important. Also, has tools where they can manipulate letters, and it prepares them too for these high-stake tests to be able to use tools on a computer, but while they are working on their reading skills as well.
at the secondary level, one of our strategies and goals is that every student needs to grapple with a complex content piece of literature based on whatever subject they're doing. Going through the electronic route, we can get kids to original source documents, we can get kids to high-level research that a teacher alone that didn't have that digital tool would never be able to find that kind of material. But we also, every kid has a standing assignment, K through 12, that they're reading for enjoyment 20 minutes a night. And so they've got that paper book. Our libraries are more robust than they've ever been because every kid is expected to be reading 20 minutes outside of content homework too.
Okay. We'll go to Board Member Gravitt and then Board Member Nilsson, you're on deck.
I just have to say, as a language arts teacher, you guys are warming my heart. I think it even grew in the past few minutes. But I guess what I want to ask, it sounds like you have some things in place to continue this growth, and you're counting on it to continue growing. But if you, like in your wish list, what would make a difference? What do you need? Is there something that would make a difference to either Wasatch or Duchesne that you wish you had to continue this? Resource?
Well, yeah,
What's
off
your
the
wish
top
list?
of my head, and I'm thinking more policy-wise and funding-wise, the grant that we received this year it's a substantial grant, and it's provided opportunities for many students we're talking in the hundreds of students in our community to have a preschool experience that otherwise would not be able to. We're in the process of how do we take care of the funding after this runs out? So I think that a continued focus on not only preschool but Upstart and other ways to get touches with our kids, the earlier the better. We know as soon as we can change that trajectory. We used to say third grade reading all the time. Now a lot of folks look at it more like the end of first grade, I think, as Jason mentioned. The sooner we can get to them, the better. And we certainly believe that additional support and funding from USBE in the vein of early childhood will be helpful.
If you ask me, it's more. It's more focus, better focus, more time, more professional development, maybe coaches. The PLC time, best practice time for them to be able to reflect and go back over the data and see what's working and what's not, and being able to address the deficits. Our professional development would probably be number one.
Board Member Nielsen and then Board Member Hanson.
All right. Hey, I can't tell you, good folks here, how great this is. I've been a teacher for the last 14 years. I currently teach at Maple Mountain High School. And I will say this, that reading changed my life. I hated reading until I was about in the 9th grade. And I had an English teacher in the 9th grade who, I don't know how he did it, but I'm now a voracious reader and went from struggling academically to doing very well academically. So the number one indicator for crime, for poverty, the number one is reading, is literacy. And it's so important what you're doing, and I'm so excited to see the improvements that you're making. So I do have a couple of questions with that. I love the loose and tight with the PLCs as well, give those teachers that leeway. But with that, in my own school, which is, I just love it, it's a marvelous school, but I'm a big PLC guy. I think most are, but I want to know what you guys are doing in your schools to convince some of those, and I don't want to say more senior because there's some junior teachers as well, that PLCs are something that you can drive data and you can make those changes. Because currently, and there's many schools around the state who have wonderful teachers in their rooms, but they don't really want to, and you administrators understand this, they don't want to branch out and collaborate in a way that exposes their data or something like that. So what is it that you're doing to get buy-in from these educators who are good at what they do, but they you understand what I mean? They don't want to go outside that box because it exposes them to say, hey, you didn't do well here, and what are you guys doing to get that buy-in?
The data will help you a lot there. If they're a very successful teacher, it's hard because what they're doing is working.
Right.
And so you have a hard time. But if they're not so successful in some areas, you have some new teachers that will come in and collaborate, and you'll be able to compare the data and show the practice. They'll self-select, and they'll either change or they'll come along. If you have them that are successful, they too will stay there for a while, but then they'll move another direction as well. But you have to be able to show them the progress of the kids because they're all there to help the kids.
Right, exactly.
And so if you can show that your kids are progressing, that they're making benchmark, that they're doing better, they'll eventually come along or they'll self-select and move out.
Excellent.
You
All right,
have a
well,
follow-up?
no, I'm very appreciative for the program and for what you're doing and for what it's doing for kids and for the community throughout the state. I just think it's wonderful.
I'd have one comment before we leave that question, Board Member Nelson. We focus on, even from a data standpoint, we try and focus on the team score and put it back on the team. And instead of highlighting highs and lows by teacher, highlighting team highs and lows. And then what happens is the members of the team are much more effective of putting pressure on those resistors than that being left up to the principal to take care of all that in the building. So I think that's one way to look at it.
Excellent, thank you.
Is it me?
Board Member let's see, did you already have a chance, didn't you?
I have a
Okay, let me
follow-up
go-
now.
Okay, just one
Okay.
sec. Board Member Lear?
Mine's a brief question. I'm just curious how much of your literacy training or problem focuses on ELL students, and so I would ask you if that is a concern, and then what percentage of ELL students do you have in each of your districts?
It is of concern, and more ELL students as we go. We don't have a real high number actually in our district, but there are some. And usually when that's identified, we put the resources that we can. There's some state fund or some federal funding there, and the WIDA resources for the assessment there. But basically, it comes back to our PLCs mostly. Okay, here's a student. What are their specific needs, and how can we help that? And maybe it's a group of teachers not as familiar with how to help those strategies, but across town there's another school that has. And so then we come together as a district, well, what worked for you? And so we share those resources and those things in our PLC setting to help those.
Whether it's ELL or not, is that what you're saying?
Exactly.
Okay, board members, we're running pretty tight on our schedule here, but I know that Board Member Lisa Cummins had another question, and then I think Board Member Hanson, and we still have Superintendent and one other board member want to.
I did want to hear the end of, can I have the end of my question to the other superintendent?
Yes.
I would just mention that it is a huge problem. Our ELL population is our most underperforming subgroup, even more than our special ed groups. And so, I think that it's a statewide problem. It's certainly a problem in our district. We have 13%. It's something we've talked a lot about this fall, and I think it goes back to what we talked about earlier. I think a lot of times we try these different programs, or we try what it comes back to, I believe, is that initial instruction. And there is some nuances with ELL instruction, but stick to the basics of the PLC world of Tier 1, Tier 2, Tier 3 instruction. Do it well with your ELLs. That's what we're banking on. We have not done a good job as yet.
And just finally, as a former English teacher myself, you never lose that belief that that's the basis of good education. So thank you so much.
Okay. Board Member Lisa Cummins.
Thank you. Thank you for indulging me a little bit more. I believe it was Wasatch that said that they were looking at implementing a district literacy specialist, which you've got. Have you thought about a librarian specialist? what value they provide to the schools, and also to expand on just and what is happening to those kids that failed last year, that are struggling from before. Are we looking at 4th grade, 5th grade, middle school, and helping those kids?
So that's a great question, and something that we have really brought to light this year is we've included our librarians in our literacy plan, and they are dedicated coaches at each building. They are the source to go to. We communicate with them often, and we're always sharing ideas and doing the best that we can. What was your last part of your question? Sorry about that.
It was about the middle school, what resources are being used to help those kids that scored low last year or the years prior, and how are we helping those kids before they get to high school? Because that's a big gap.
Yes. The first thing we do is we want to make sure that the teachers are scaffolding grade level content and giving all kids access to core. That's the first and foremost. As we fill in gaps, we've worked a lot with Jennifer and brought in our librarians and our instructional coaches to help meet the needs of those students who need extra reading practice. We do diagnostic testing, we progress monitor them, and we give them the instruction that they need to fill their holes. We also have some evidence-based programs that we are using at the secondary level that help fill those holes, but still allowing kids to have access to the core while doing that. And that's something that we've really focused on, and Jim could maybe speak a little bit more to that. But
I would just say before Jim goes, the feedback loop on identifying struggling students should be 3 to 4 weeks. So we should have some data. This isn't something that we evaluate just last year to the next year. This is something that should be evaluated every 3 to 4 weeks and that's what a high functioning PLC does.
So as soon as we get back to Wasatch, at 1 o'clock, we have our first snapshot of all of our tiered levels of intervention, their reading data. We do that on a 6-week cycle, and it's our librarians who are primarily responsible. They're the ones who are progress monitoring, controlling the data on how well kids are reading in the buildings. So every building in Wasatch School District has a dedicated librarian working in concert with the literacy specialist. And we hope that by 3 o'clock this afternoon, we're gonna have some great data to give all those kids who've been working very hard, who came to the secondary level below grade level.
Board Member Hanson?
And I think maybe partially you have already answered this, but of those subgroups, because we don't have that data in front of us, which ones are you most concerned about, and are you working with those? So you have ELL, you have special ed. Are there any others that you're concerned about that you're working with?
We have a lot of those. We have a Pacific Islander group. We also have tribal members, and we do have ELL, and they're growing all the time. As oil increases and the labor force changes just a little bit, we have an influx. We are working with them through PLC. The data, as Paul's already brought up, is looked at weekly, and we either can do that within groups, within the classroom, or we can do it with pullouts. We have strategies that we're using all the time to bring them up to speed. And when we have the autopsy at the end of the year, that's not enough. We need that all the time. And we bring in coaches for each one of those schools. So we try to meet this child on their individual need.
And special ed too, you're working with them and your PLCs?
Yes, and they're all part of our group. If you look at the PLC process, it originated in special ed. It was individualized, individual IEP, and so now it's coming out for every student. So
thank you.
We're getting close to the end here, but the superintendent has a comment, and I have a closing comment.
I just wanted to thank you so much for being here. It's so exciting to see the progress that you've made, and I had the opportunity to visit Duchesne and, I think November 7th maybe, if I've got that date right, coming to Wasatch. So I'm anxious to see your progress as well. But I wanted to say that these superintendents know individual students. The folks that work at the district office know the individual students, and I was so impressed when I toured with Superintendent Brotherson. We would go into a classroom, and he could talk about what was happening in the classroom, the instruction going on, and actually identify students that hadn't been a part of preschool services that were struggling in kindergarten. I was so impressed by that depth of knowledge and the leadership. You've been very kind to me, but I want to give that shout out back to the leadership in your districts, because leadership sets the tone and the expectations for what is happening in your schools. So shout out to your Board of Education, to you as leaders for making this happen and for being vigilant about really focusing on individual students and their needs and concerns. So I'm so proud of you guys. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Guys and gals.
And I just want to echo where the superintendent is. I know it's just not you guys that you all that are making all of this happen. There's an education community that's all behind it. And I applaud you for reaching out with your truth and taxation and getting some extra money to fund this particular priority. And the results speak. And I think we got some media around here. I see a camera, but I don't see anybody behind it. But I'm sure somebody will be behind it sometime today. But this is a big win. Education is happening in our state. These numbers are really good when you talk to other states. They're not in this boat. So thank you, and kudos go out to all of you. But I have a question for the superintendent. I'm going to put you on the spot here a little bit, superintendent. This is a pretty good victory for our state again. Are you and your staff prepared to communicate with any media sources on this data and this particular victory?
We actually have a plan to push it out, and I think it's a great opportunity to give a shout out to our staff who are supportive, and we do have great expertise on our staff. We've expertly acquired amazing people, but they come back and they cheerlead what's happening in the schools and the hard work of your teachers. And so while they're serving as experts, they're also your greatest cheerleaders and want to be able to provide the resources they can throughout the state. So we do have a media plan to push it all out, and I know Emily's back there somewhere. Emily and Tiffany, I know, have been working with Jennifer on a plan. So.
Okay, then one more follow up here for your staff, superintendent. As I work with, I represent a lot, the whole state now, kind of as the chair, but with the rural districts, it's amazing to me as I get out into them, and literacy's big, and early intervention's really big for me, and has been for about the last 20 years. But it's amazing to me how many people know Jennifer. They say, "Oh, do you know Jennifer? Do you get to see Jennifer?" And that. And these are the people in the trenches. These are the educators. And so a shout out to you, and then also to the local boards and the superintendents and all of you that welcome USBE resources in being part of your solution. My last question, and I don't want to get an answer today, but you can go back to the superintendents or however you want to route this, is what more can we do and try to get that back to us to help this cause, this fight, and to keep improving these scores? So not really a challenge, it's a question, and I'm looking forward to your answer if you take it to your superintendents or however you want to do that. So thank you. I'm not seeing any other questions or comments. Thank you for being here. This definitely is a education highlight. So appreciate your sacrifice for being here. Thank you. Okay, next we're going to public comment, and is somebody right there that can grab that podium to throw back? To pass that out? Yes. But if we can just get a group, we can get it circulated, or just get a pile of those papers.